Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Today, a few days ago, if you didn't see it, I left a community post asking what would you like to see added to Wizard101. Now obviously I did this for curiosity's sake, but I did also do it with the ulterior purpose. I wanted to make a video out of it. Specifically, I wanted to look at what the most popular suggestions were, what people want to see added, what comes up more frequently, and I kind of want to make a letter to King's Isle almost. I want to make this video with the express purpose, if someone at King's Isle watches this is what most people want. Now, obviously, this is a small sample size. There wasn't like hundreds of comments on that, so there'll probably be more suggestions in the comments below, but I think I got a fair kind of assessment of what people want the most right now in this game and what updates they would like to see in the near future. Now, I will say, every single one of these things that people have mentioned, I basically agree with. I'll mention how much I agree with it and how much I think it's needed as time goes on, but I really wanted to make this video with that purpose in mind. This is what people want to see right now out of updates and what probably should be focused on. So without further ado, let's get into the actual video itself. So the first thing that I saw a lot, and something that I have mentioned in the past, not everyone agrees with, but there's different ways to go about it, is a hard difficulty on Wiz. Now, some people don't want a hard difficulty, and I do understand that. That is completely fair, which is why I proposed, and why many people have proposed, to make a separate kind of zone or separate difficulty for people who want this harder difficulty. So one suggestion I saw was have certain realms be difficult realms. Like, they're in their own separate section. This is a hard realm, and it has enemies that have a higher difficulty, whether it be a higher amount of health, maybe potentially cheats, something along those lines. That's what people want to see. And I know that this is a suggestion I've actually made in the past. I think right now Wizard101 is almost pathetically easy in a lot of cases. My friend and I are going through the game right now with two wizards, and we are doing an ice and a balance, and let me tell you, that is not a good combination. But I'm also saying we've had no difficulty so far, and we're not going to have any difficulty in the future because this game is realistically pretty easy. The only things that are actually difficult in this game are the very difficult and climactically hard boss fights, like the Trident at the end of Imperia or Grandfather Spider at the end of Mirage. Stuff like that, those are the climactic difficult fights, but most fights in this game, like a vast majority, 99% plus, is not difficult, which is why a lot of people have proposed to add that hard difficulty. A lot of people's problem right now with PvE and the base game content of kind of Wizard101 is that it is realistically very easy, and very easy in a lot of cases equals pretty boring. I know that while I love PvE to death, and obviously I'm a PvE YouTuber slash Wizard101 player, I can say that the game definitely can get a little bit boring once you've done it a certain amount of times. And as someone who's done this game like 20 times, there are certain worlds that definitely drag on, feel a little bit boring, and I think that a hard difficulty would actually really benefit a lot of these areas, especially some of the earlier worlds that are really, really easy, and even some of Arc 3, maybe Arc 4. So that is the first suggestion. Again, I don't think that this should be a blanket make the game harder. I do think that some people like this game easy as it is, the more unexperienced players, and you don't want to turn off those newer players who might not be as experienced, which is why, again, I recommend adding different realms that specifically are labeled hard so people don't enter them without knowing and wanting that challenge. The next suggestion that people wanted, and something that I definitely have said many times, is a graphical update for Arc 1. Now, I would say that obviously we already have Wizard City, and we're probably going to get Krakatopia in the future, but what worlds specifically need it the most? Because I've talked about this in the past, but there's definitely worlds that need it more than others. Well, I would say Arc 1 definitely needs it the most. Realistically, Arc 3, Arc 4 already look good. They don't need any changing. Arc 1 needs changing, but only specific worlds, I would say. I would say right now, the worlds that need it the most are Krakatopia, which is very obvious, and we're probably going to get a graphical update soon for it. Realistically, the sand just looks very boring, and it looks very repetitive and kind of gross in a lot of cases. It could really do with an update, and the Doomsday Croc Gauntlet looked beautiful. So if they did something like that with some updated graphics, it would look really, really cool. Next, I would say is Mushu. This is, especially for me, it's very easy to compare it to Pirate 101 Mushu, and realistically, the differences are like stark. Like, you can look at one and look at the other and go, oh my god, this is the same world. I didn't even know that, because it is that different. Mushu has a lot of problems right now. Specifically, I would say the biggest ones are the grass areas kind of look very bland and basic, and it kind of detracts from the world overall. And two is obviously the bamboo cutouts on the side of the streets are 2D, and they look very, very gross and very, very boring. People want that updated, and I know one of the biggest issues people have with Mushu in this game is the graphics. If they just updated it to look like Pirate 101's Mushu, it would probably be one of the most loved worlds in this game, and I'm not even kidding. I think that that's just true. The final Arc 1 world I would say is Dragonspire. Dragonspire has quite a few problems with it, in my opinion. It definitely is meant to look dark and overwhelming, you know, with all the lava and everything. The problem is that the bad graphics, especially with lava and the rocks, make it look very, very gross in some cases and almost detract from it just purely because of that. Like, I know one of my main issues with Dragonspire is just how kind of dull and disgusting it looks in a lot of cases. So I would say Dragonspire needs it a lot. In terms of other worlds and Arc 2 and beyond, I would say the only real world that could potentially use one is Celestia. I think everything post Zafaria looks really good, but Celestia definitely still is a bit lacking in some cases, especially in the Celestia base camp and the ground areas. Like, they don't even need to adjust any of the Celestian parts of the world or any of the kind of steampunk-esque parts of the world. I think it's legitimately just the ground areas and the sandy areas that need it the most. Now, this is just another thing I'm going to add that people haven't mentioned, but I think it's because people haven't noticed. There's this weird thing that happens in this game where in certain worlds, specifically Arc 1 worlds like Marleybone, for some reason the whole game flashes and removes every single graphical thing sometimes. It would be really hard to get an example of it, but you can notice it happens sometimes in my videos, especially when I'm in Marleybone. For some reason, everything flashes and you can only see the skybox for a second. Like, so you can see the background kind of sky area, but you can't actually see any of the buildings or anything, and it's just really weird and distracting. And I noticed it happens a lot Arc 1 worlds. That would be a good fix as well. But that's really it for graphical changes, I would say. That's what we kind of want the most, I would say, is Arc 1 to be adjusted. The reason why I didn't mention Marleybone is because I think Marleybone already looks pretty much fine. It's kind of what you'd expect from Victorian England. Next up are a few kind of quality of life / player changes, specifically ones I know that are requested a lot. One is name changing. This is probably a decently easy feature to add and something a lot of people would want. I know, especially like me, I named my character something I definitely didn't want to back when I was a child, and now I'm like, okay, well, he's 150, so I can't delete him, but I would very much like a different name than what I have. I know a lot of people experience that as well, and a lot of people want to change it. I know that some people, especially KingsIsle, might be concerned, like, how would you know who's a different wizard or not? It's very simple. Just make it so that if you hover over their name like this, it kind of does like a pop-out thing that says, this wizard used to be known as this, or whatever, right? Really easy feature to add, and something that I think a lot of people would really enjoy. Something else is mount stitching and pet stitching. I think pet stitching isn't something that's an overwhelming demand, but it could be cool because I know a lot of people, you know, like things like blades and stuff on their pet. Like, I would very much like this Frillisaur if it had a different look and had a different card, but had the set bonus. Because it's just kind of a bummer, you know, having to use a pet that you don't particularly like or looks bad because of the fact that it doesn't match up with the modern meta and the modern stats, right? And I think that that's a huge thing that I would really enjoy in the future. Like, I really love the look of the eyeball pets, but it doesn't give me the set bonus, right? So I think that that would be a cool addition, but mount stitching more prevalently is something that people want because there are mounts that obviously give either set bonuses or give a plus amount of a stat, and the problem with that is obviously those mounts don't look the best. Like, specifically Gulchers give that plus 3% damage, but Gulchers are a really ugly mount. A lot of people want a different mount, me included. Like, I don't use my Gulcher because I legitimately think it looks that bad, despite the fact it gives me that extra 3 damage. I think a lot of people would like it if you can mount stitch, switch to something else. It would just be really cool. The final thing for this section that I would personally like, and some people have said, is make it so that you can dye your clothes any color, no matter what gender of wizard. And on top of that, add different colors as well. This is something I really want. Like, the fact that as a male, you can't dye some of your stuff pink, really weird. I think the reverse of that, as a female wizard, you can't dye your stuff brown. I think that that's right. might be tan. It's one of those colors. It's just a weird thing that they made that just doesn't make sense. I don't know why it's like that, and I think it would be really cool if they added it so that there was more dyeability of certain gears. On top of that, add different colors as well. I think it would be really cool to see stuff like a dark red, some different types of grays, you know, maybe like specifically a silver and gold color. Really just different shades I think would work really well for gears, and I imagine it wouldn't be too hard to implement. Maybe that's just me. But that's really it for the character section. Now I'm going to go into the final section, and one I think is the most major one and a lot of people want, is lessening on pay to win and payment policies. And this is something that obviously I don't think is going to change, but it's something that the entire player base is crying out for, and we are being ignored constantly. This includes stuff like the new packs and the new payment things either being extremely pay to win, specifically things like the Heroes of Lemuria pack having some really good energy gear. We should be able to get energy gear as a free-to-play player. Certain wands from certain packs, certain spells like the Celestian Spell Elemental pack, we need to get that stuff free to play. On top of that, stuff like stitching gear realistically probably shouldn't cost crowns, or it should cost significantly less crowns. I don't think it should cost 100 crowns to stitch your gear. That's just kind of like a weird, in my opinion. I think it should either cost gold or it should cost like 10 crowns so you can realistically do it with trivia. Much easier than doing 10 trivias a day. I think that that is completely fair, and stitching is just a thing that should be a natural part of this game. There's the obvious big one of pushing back the paywall past Wizard City to, you know, Crocotopia or to further in Arc 1. Obviously, this is one that everyone wants, but we're probably never gonna get. And for me and for a lot of players, the biggest thing is please stop focusing on all of these packs and all of these crown items, because we want actual updates. This is something I've talked about a lot in the past, but whenever a new pack or a new bundle like this is released, it feels like wasted development time that could have been spent on something like a new quest line or a new side world. And that's what a lot of people want. They want new content in this game. They want new additions and new updates. We don't want new pack items and new crown items, because we're tired of just getting this same repetitive over and over again crown items. For me, this is something that I think is especially prevalent, especially when you're releasing a Knights table right here that you can sit at that costs $10. This crowned item, this housing item that is a literal, just a table that you can sit at, costs $10. That's a little bit ridiculous if I do say so myself. But that's really all I have time for this video. Obviously, there is many more recommendations, and I'm sure people will leave even more recommendations in the comments below. So please, if a KingsIsle dev is watching it, please check out and read some of those comments. And if you are not a KingsIsle dev, which is the vast majority of us, leave in the comments what you wish to be added. Obviously, there was a ton of other stuff in that recommended that I think would be good, that I think is really good. I just mentioned the most major ones that I think a lot of people would like to see added to the game at this current stage. So I hope you all enjoyed. Again, let me know in the comments what you think, but otherwise that is it. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video. Adios.